All right, let's get right into it. We talk about creativity like it's this one magical thing, right? A spark of genius. But what if it's actually two different things? Today, we're going to look at what really drives your creativity, and we're going to do it through two really powerful lenses: the science of your personality, who you are today, and the incredible potential of who you could become tomorrow. So, let me just ask you this straight up. Which one feels more like you? Are you the brilliant scientist, the one who just loves finding patterns and solving puzzles? Or are you the groundbreaking artist, someone who creates entire new worlds pretty much out of thin air? Now, it sounds like a simple question, but the answer, well, it's way more complex than you think, and it's tied directly to how you're wired. You can almost think of it like a puzzle. On one side, you've got your personality, your natural instincts, the stuff you're just drawn to. And on the other side, you've got your potential, the person you're actively trying to be. So we're going to try and put these pieces together, and we're going to start with the hard science of what makes you, you. So our first stop is the fascinating research of Dr. Scott Barry Kaufman. He really dug deep into the science to figure out which specific personality traits actually predict real-world creative success. And I'm not talking about some vague horoscope stuff here. We're talking about measurable scientific factors. The big player in this whole story is a personality trait you might have heard of called openness to experience. It's one of the big five, and basically, it's a measure of your appetite for new things. New ideas, new feelings, new adventures. It's the broadest and most complex of the personality traits, and it's the one that's consistently linked to creativity of all kinds. But this is where it gets really, really interesting. Kaufman's work shows that this giant trait, openness to experience, isn't just one big blob. It actually splits into two very different pieces. First, you have intellect, which is all about your drive to play with abstract ideas, to solve problems. And then you have openness, which is about engaging with the world through your senses, through feelings, and through beauty. You could almost think of it as the creativity of the head versus the creativity of the heart. And as you can see here, the rabbit hole goes even deeper. Kaufman discovered that those two aspects, intellect and openness, they each break down again. So on the intellect side, you've got explicit cognitive ability, that's kind of like your raw mental horsepower, and intellectual engagement, which is just the sheer love of tackling complex problems. And then on the openness side, you see it splits into affective engagement, which is all about your connection to emotions, and aesthetic engagement, your appreciation for art and beauty. These four little factors are the real building blocks. And here it is. This is the big reveal. This is where Kaufman connected those four factors to what people actually create in the real world. And just look at these results. It's so clear. The intellect factors, engagement and ability, they are huge predictors of creative success in the sciences. But then the openness factors, affective and aesthetic engagement, they predict creative achievement in the arts. So the takeaway is huge. The scientist and the artist inside of us are powered by fundamentally different engines. Okay, so that's a snapshot of who we are right now, based on our personality. But what if that's only half the story? What about our ability to change, to grow, to evolve? For that, we're going to turn to our second lens, the work of Dr. Anna Lowe Smitsman, who looks at the blueprints for our future potential. Dr. Smitsman talks a lot about archetypes. Now, you might hear archetype and think of, characters in old myths, but she sees them as something way more profound. As she puts it, they're the deep, hidden patterns that actually guide how things grow and transform. They're like the invisible instructions for what's possible. Here's the best way to think about it. Inside every caterpillar, there are these things called imaginal cells. They carry the complete genetic blueprint for the butterfly. And for most of the caterpillar's life, they just lie dormant. But then, at exactly the right moment, they activate and orchestrate this unbelievable transformation. Smitsman's idea is that we have these imaginal cells too, these future archetypes, just waiting inside us for the right conditions to kickstart our own evolution. So what do these future blueprints look like? Smitsman points to 5 key archetypes that are super important for our time. You've got the wholeness coder, who designs complex systems, the future creative, who dreams up grand new possibilities, the evolutionary catalyst, who actually makes change happen, the pattern weaver, who connects people and ideas, and the new paradigm storyteller, who creates the new myths that guide us. And the key thing to remember is these aren't personality types you're stuck with. They're more like creative roles you can consciously step into. Okay, so on one hand, we have Kaufman's scientific breakdown of our personality, and on the other, we have Smitsman's incredible model of our potential. Two totally different ways of looking at you. So how do we connect them? How does the science of who you are relate to the blueprint of who you could be? Well, the bridge between these two worlds comes from a concept called dual process theory. It's pretty simple, actually. It just says we have two main ways of thinking. Type 1 thinking is your fast, automatic, intuitive gut feeling. And type 2 thinking is your slow, deliberate, analytical mind at work. And here's the link. Kaufman's research shows a clear line from the openness factors to type 1 thinking and from the intellect factors to type 2. And this is where it all comes together. This is the aha moment. What if those two thinking styles are the very engines that power these future archetypes? I mean, just look at this. The slow, logical type 2 thinking, driven by our intellect, seems like the perfect fuel for a wholeness coder or a pattern weaver, right? Archetypes that need to analyze and build complex systems. And that fast, intuitive, emotional type 1 thinking, driven by our openness, feels like the natural energy source for a future creative or a new paradigm storyteller who need vision and feeling to do their work. It just clicks. So what does all of this actually mean for you, sitting here right now? It means your creativity is not some fixed thing. It's this dynamic dance between your natural personality, your factory settings, if you will, and the future potential that you actively choose to bring to life. So let's just boil it all down. First, your creative style isn't random. It has deep roots in your personality. We've seen how intellect pushes you towards science and openness pushes you toward the arts. But, and this is the important part, that's just your starting point. These archetypes give you a roadmap for growth. They are blueprints for who you can consciously decide to become. You can totally honor your natural gifts while also choosing to build new ones. Which leaves us with one last big question. Is your creativity already coded into your personality from the start, or is it a story that you are still in the middle of writing? And the beautiful thing is, the answer seems to be both. You have a code, but you also hold the pen. So the only real question left is, what are you going to create next?